This is Antonio Wolf, here for another episode of. I still don't know what we're going to call this podcast, quite frankly. I'll think of a name. The Hegelian Life, maybe. But you're the first person other than me who has a regular name. I've already done it with a couple of other people. You know, they don't want to reveal their identities, which is fine. But, you know, this is my good friend Pedro Ribeiro da Silva. Or what is it? What is it you go by these days?
I am Pedro Safara.
Safara.
That's
Oh,
my,
okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah,
let's say,
yeah.
artistical name. Artistic name, yeah.
Yeah. You're a bit unique. I'd like to introduce you. You're from Brazil, but you've lived in Portugal, and you live in Portugal still.
Yes.
You are first an artist, not a philosopher or a law student or a political economist.
Exactly. My main interests are, uh, like, at first, poetry and music. Yes.
Yes. We'll go ahead and promote you. I'll put a link to your stuff once the video is out. But yeah, let's get going with these questions. You're going to be one of the most interesting people. I guarantee it.
Oh,
So
thank you.
first, I'd like to ask you, what is Hegelianism in general, according to you?
Hegelianism, I would be very, very, very simple here. I don't believe in such a thing as being a Hegelian. I believe there is philosophy, and people usually think of philosophy of these opinions that people have, or think of philosophy as these texts on moral edification or social commentary, and the like. But to say that I am a Hegelian would the same for me to affirm that um, today's physicists are Einsteinian. For me, that doesn't make sense. And this already is a characteristic, paradoxically, of being a Hegelian.
Yeah, exactly.
um, um, I would answer straightforward. To be a Hegelian is to think of philosophy not as edification, not as general opinions, not as social commentary, not as a model uh, from which you gather certain moral principles to design a new world. Philosophy is mainly the thinking of thoughts, the thinking of pure thoughts, the thinking of pure thought determinations. Um, we're talking about thoughts as simple as being, becoming, something, measure, essence, all those thoughts that actually are present in our everyday life, but which are not themselves thematized by ordinary thinking. For me, that's basically Hegelianism. At first, immediately speaking, that's Hegelianism. Of course, that when you get into it, things get much more interesting, right?
Yep. You get a lot more than you bargained for at the beginning. All right,
Yes.
we can move on to the next question. What led you to study Hegel? How does an artist end up in one of the what is considered by many the hardest philosopher ever?
Um, I think that I was led to study Hegel by the dichotomies of my time. When I was studying sociology, there was the dichotomy between system and agency, for example, right? The dichotomy between man and female, the dichotomy between, I don't know, freedom and determinism. All those dichotomies and the hiatus that I perceived that would led people to take a certain stand in these dichotomy battles led me to think that maybe there was something wrong over there, right? I study a lot of contemporary philosophy. I study Levinas. I study Deleuze a bit when I was younger. I study a lot of Spinoza. But Spinoza actually didn't give me any answers, particularly in the problem of individuation and the problem of why does individual things are. Spinoza would simply answer that they are not, right? That they are pure illusions. But, well, as illusions they are, you know? And apart from that, I thought that the fifth book of the ethics was a bit paradoxical because we were convinced throughout the whole book that we didn't have any agency to change our lives. But the fifth book is all about tips to how overcome our subordination, you know? So I felt that subjectivity was lacking in Spinoza's account of the world, of God, and of human beings. So I stumbled upon Hegelian philosophy through Zizek. I think this is very common, right? Through psychoanalysis. And I became hooked. In the beginning, there was a lot of, I wasted a lot of time because I was looking through bad commentators. What I mean with bad commentators are those commentators who actually don't take Hegel seriously, right? They take snippets of Hegel, and so they can work out their own brilliant ideas, but they don't take the fundamental projects of Hegelian philosophy seriously, which is a philosophy that wants to account absolutely for itself, that doesn't want to take anything as given, to make like the student accept anything as given and then proceed. So I study. When I understood Hegel, and I understood Hegel in great part with your help, Antonio. You helped me a lot through my first approaches with Hegel. I remember that I read the Imperial Trail, and I thought to myself, this is a brilliant man. He writes very, very well. It's a very well written blog. I completely recommend it to everybody that wants to study Hegel, that approaches me wanting to know more about Hegel. And in the moment that I understood the basic proposal of the science of logic and the proceeding, a very honest proceeding of the phenomenology and the science of logic, well, I was hooked. I thought to myself, this is it. This is a way of going beyond those dichotomies, going beyond binary thinking or anti-binary thinking, which is a kind, for me, it's always a species of binary thinking because they usually they insist too much in absolute differences between terms, just like binary thinking does. So yeah, and when I started studying also Hegel's aesthetic, it helped me a lot to clarify my own role as an artist in the world. And it helped me a lot to clarify the basic moves of art, right? And why art is important for human beings, and why artists are important in any society whatsoever.
Yeah, yeah. I particularly remember there was a portion of time where I kind of annoyed you greatly because you would come to me and you would say, okay, like, is it this? I think you had focused on the determinacy, the generation of determinacies aspect that Winfield and I think Alan White emphasize. And at the
Yeah.
beginning, I told you, yeah, sure, that makes sense. And then I started pushing back on you, and you're like, but I thought you told me this. And I'm like, well, yes, but no. And you were, I remember that. That was pretty funny. I know it's
Yeah.
funny from my perspective, like, but like when you're in it, it's frustrating. But once you get it, you're like, oh yeah, it's one of those things. And like what you said, it's anti-binary thinking, but it's not anti-non-binary either. And so it's a fine
Yes.
line when you first get into it, like not to fall into either of those, because you actually fall right in a different way.
Yes.
Um, okay. I actually mentioned this in my interview is like the first one that I'm going to put up. Uh, do you notice anything, like you said, you kind of came in through it a little bit through psychoanalysis. Do you notice that there's a certain kind of like a character profile that people have that are attracted to this kind of philosophy? Because I think there is.
Um, I'm curious about the profile that you're talking about. In my opinion, I think that people who are not satisfied the with the that's it. I would say like that's a way of putting it. Like what I mean by that. Um, I will use a very typical parental example, right? When you were a kid and you start asking a lot of questions, your parents, to your mother or father, there's a moment in which they get tired of answering you, and they said because. In Portuguese, we say porque sim, because yes, you know? And this final yes is the problem. This accepted based purely on authority, I think that's the problem of many people who recur to Hegel's philosophy because I think those are people who are not anti authority, like by principle, but they are intelligent enough to try to get to the end of their questioning, without simply stopping because some very smart dude said that's the way it is. So I really think that the characteristic of a Hegelian is this necessity of depth and responsibility in speech.
No, I agree with that. That's one of the. There's not just one character profile. There's one in which like certain people they really want to know and like they are bothered by not having absolute answers. Another one is
Yes,
like the
yes,
person who like is just like really wants an explanation of freedom and they intuit freedom in a way. And even though
yeah.
they
That
don't
was
fully
also my
grasp it,
case. Yes,
yeah, and even if they don't
yes,
fully grasp it, they kind of gravitate to people like Hegel or other German ideals who really focus on this idea. And then I
that's
think there's
that's
a
that's a good point.
yeah, and I think there's another group of people which I'm also like part of that like they come from a very broken background and they have this really strong intuitive desire and perhaps one would say a need for little things for to have something that comes together and holds together because everything else in like their experience falls apart. And so I've noticed it. I noticed this around with like a lot of people who really get deep into this immediately, and then but they don't fully grasp it. They have like an emotional attachment to it. So like they want this stuff to be true, even though they don't really understand it. But they get like they get really attached to the Hegelian system because I
Yeah,
suppose it
that's
feels
a
like a
very nice way. That's a very nice way of seeing, and I think that's a bit of my case too. Like the part of freedom, for example. Um, you intuit freedom, but you don't know how to think it properly, right? But you feel that the romantic answer to freedom is not the answer. The simply the simple answer that freedoms can only be intuited. That freedom is forever separated from reason, from argumentation, from thought, right? And there's that. And I think I really think that you've got something on that because one of the things that marked my life forever is the fact that I didn't have a father, right? I didn't have a father figure. My mother was a very is and she still is. I love her, but I didn't have a guide in many things that I did in my life. So I became a self-taught person. And I think this characteristic of trying to teach yourself things that your didn't teach, right? I didn't have like a guide who taught me how to argue with people, how to think, where to go, what is good, what is bad. You know what I mean? I had mostly like a religious background, which taught me things like very lightly, but everything that I've learned in my life was through self teaching, English, philosophy, music, everything. And I think one of the things that really attracted me in Hegelian philosophy is that you don't need to have a brilliant background because nothing is on intuition. Nothing is on things that were given to you when you were a privileged child. If you really want to get into it, you don't need anything to begin. You don't need a rich family that had taught you like how to think as an aristocrat. You know what I mean? It's a very
Yeah.
popular and democratic philosophy because it begins in the beginning, in a sense, and it will not depend on givens, on social givens, on family givens, and in that sense, I think it really it is really democratic and exoteric, and it's really good to get into it because through Hegel you really get a grip on your life. I think that's another point, which communicates with what you were saying.
No, yeah, yeah, and that leads us very nicely into the third question. How has studying Hegel's philosophy impacted your daily life? How has it impacted the way you view the world, the way you treat other people, the way you might feel about things, or how this has impacted your view of art or how you create art?
Well, like when I understood that the beauty, the good, and the truth were in the world, that they were not pure abstractions, pure absences. When I understood that there is infinity in the finite, I understood that I should fight for a life with dignity, not only in terms of complaining about social issues, doing militant things, and complaining about society on the internet, but really to realize my vocation in the world. You know, one of the things that really got me uh, when I started studying Hegel is the concept of Bestimmung, right? Because Bestimmung can mean two different things in German. And I think Hegel really shows why those two meanings are interconnected. Bestimmung can mean either vocation, right? Like a voice is calling you for something, and can also mean determination, or in other words, the limits of something, like how something is made, right? What it is, right?
Hmm.
And when I started studying Hegel, I started believing in vocation, and I started seeing how our vocation is actually uh, pretty much um, intimately related to the way we are built, right? Uh, for example, a very simple example, when you look at different kitchen knives, right? And you see their uses, you see that a knife has a pointy, which is pointy, is used to cut into something, right? And and it
Hmm.
doesn't need to be used in a situation in which you don't need to cut into something. You understand what I mean? I know this is a
Yeah.
very very basic example, but
Yeah.
I started to look at myself and trying to come to grips with the following question: what is my vocation, and what is the best life that I could live in this world that I have? Like Hegel saved me from abstract idealism. I'm still idealistic. I still, in the sense, in that old sense that ideas matter and things are not the way they should be. But Hegel saved me from that attitude of abstract negation of the world in which so many left-wing people nowadays are, they can't realize themselves in the world as it is because they have this brilliant idea inside their heads, and this world which we are in, right, it doesn't perfectly corresponds to this brilliant idea, and people like they quit life. And I think I was quitting life, you know I think it's very common
Yeah.
to people's like people like me with my profile to get into abstract philosophies and start and simply quit life with a reason. I quit life because we live in a system of political economy which is based on exploration and estrangement and blah blah blah. Okay, okay, but what are you going to do with your life? That and I think Hegel helped me to get out of an abstract negation of life, and help
Yeah.
me to really put forward the question, what is my vocation? Because again, vocation is also interconnected to the concept of freedom. Because freedom is in Hegel, as I understand it, is not a matter of choice. Choice is really like a very small, let's say, element within the concept of freedom. Freedom in Hegel is to be what you are, in a sense, and to realize yourself through your actions, right? Hegel saved me from lyricism. What is to be lyrical? To be lyrical is to have this uh, huge internal life which doesn't actually realize itself in the world because the world isn't perfect. And I am a very special being. I am a very beautiful soul which doesn't want to get dirty in the dealings with the world as it is. Hegel saved me from that,
No,
and
no, yeah.
help me to really put forward the question, what is my vocation? Which is a question that leads to the another question, what does it mean to me as an individual to actually be free in the world as it is?
No, yeah, yeah. To add to that, I think like the issue you're pointing to is the fact that a lot of people see there's all these big problems in the world, and when they first find out about this, and the second thing is like, we got to fix this. And the only way they can think to fix it is to do something equally big to the big problem they see, abstractly speaking. But since it's just an
Yes,
abstraction, there's no way to go from me, the individual, to I gotta save my country or I gotta save Western civilization or something like that. And you get dispirited pretty quickly because it's impossible. And yeah, Hegel does help you with that. In that Hegel lets you realize, no, no, these individual things, like creating a song, writing a poem, and if you really put your heart into
yes,
it, if it's really something true, it is part of changing the world. It is something
exactly.
necessary.
Exactly. Like resisting the temptation of suicide, depression, fixity, and actually putting yourself in the world and actually transforming intentions in actions. These are the contributions that you can give to a world which is beautiful, true, and just and good. And that's how Hegel impacted my life. I started being a much more practical person. Ironically, right? Like many people think Hegel is highly theoretical and it doesn't serve anything and blah 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 blah. Well, in my case, Hegel helped me to actually value practicality, to value actually get out of your head and realize something in the world.
Yeah, yeah. Has it impacted the way in which like a lot of people get into politics? They become what's misanthropic. They tend to like to utterly dislike people because the masses are stupid and you know they won't
Yeah,
wake up and do the revolution, and well, they deserve all this, and I just like walk away from it all. Uh,
yeah.
from my perspective, like I have had a change in which the Hegel gave me sympathy for the average person who
That was
they have their
exactly
own
what I was going
struggles.
to say. That exactly what I was going to say. Like Hegel gave me sympathy for the simple life. Actually, the life without like glitter of being a hero or being like living is heroically enough, you know, living a simple life, raising a child, having like an actual family, not something that goes by the name of family and it's not a family, you know, being a true friend, being an actual friend. Those are very simple things, and they are not um, dignified through fame or to like glitter recognition, but they are what actually what makes the world like a place in which like a livable place, you know, a place in which you can live. So it gave me a lot, as you said, like that's exactly what I was going to say. Like, it gave me a lot of sympathy and a lot of respect for like the average person who was going by trying their best, trying to live their lives, you know. Yes.
Mhm. Along with that, what is it? One of the most famous and also disdained claims about Hegelianism is this whole idea of the reconciliation, of the self with reality. That a lot of people take this to be a conservative. Oh well, things are the way they are, and I can't fix them. I won't fix them. I won't do anything, and it's completely mistaken. But how do you view that?
Oh, this is very interesting because like the reconciliation of that Hegel is talking about is not a false reconciliation. It's not a like a subordinative reconciliation. We're talking about a real reconciliation. We're talking about like reconciliation as will to live, to continue doing things, you know, of not like becoming a cynical person. You know what I mean? Like that's enough of a reconciliation for anybody, because I know a lot of people who get in their 30s, they are all like very militant and very radical and very politically engaged in their 20s. And when they get in their thirds, instead of revising their own ideas about the world, they think that the world is wrong, and they in their inner space they are right, you know, and the world is shitty because it didn't correspond to their expectations, you know, and then they become cynical, and instead of changing their attitude, they become pretty much cynical. So this attitude of non-reconciliation with the world, that's what leads people to actually abandon ideals, abandon like the ambition of actually doing something good in the world, not the true reconciliation of that Hegel offers us, which is that it's like saying, dude, I know you have a lot of brilliant ideas on how the world should be, but you know, you are an individual among a whole lot of individuals. You are only in will among a whole lot of wills, you know? And of course, you have like a relationship with infinity. You are an I, right? But you shouldn't be as quick as to think that you have like within yourself the whole solution of everything. You should actually work small, you know, and try to see in life not only what is wrong but also what is right. Like, I remember when I started understanding Hegelian philosophy, I had these sudden hits of joy, you know, when I saw beauty in the world, when I saw good in the world. That reminds me a lot of when I was reading a book of from Rudolf Steiner. I am not much into it, but I was reading out of curiosity, and he was talking about the path to enlightenment, right? To that the path of to initiation, mystical initiation. And one of the things that he said is that the student should be guided to start to train to see good things. That's another thing. Like, it's very easy to criticize things, to transform things into nothing, you know, to see the bad in the world. But it takes a very trained eye to see the good things, you know, to see like the small threads of hope, of goodness, of beauty, of truth in the world, you know. And that's not simply saying, oh yes, everything is fine and everything is all right, and I will only live my inner life, and I would do anything else. No, that's not true. Like on the contrary, I became more active in the world, and I think that my influence in the world around me has become much more positive after I gave up the abstract imposition of of rules in on the world. You know?
Hmm. No, yeah, yeah. You're a very argumentative person. You like to debate. I remember a few years ago you had quite a few debates with what is it psychoanalysts and other like social theorists in the Portuguese online discussion space about
Yeah,
foundations and about their lack of foundations, and how these
yeah,
people, when you brought these things up, they either just like refused to engage your arguments, or they even admitted to it and then just pretended that it didn't matter. And they pretended that they had some kind of right to say, well, we still as therapists can tell you that you ought to do this, or that, we can help you with certain things because we have some kind of normative validity, even though we can't explain it.
yeah.
So stuff like that, I think a lot of people may think like, oh, well, it's a bunch of online debates. Well, no, you debate with the right person. Just takes one, and you change a little bit of their thinking with something that's a true seed right there. That itself is part of changing the
Absolutely,
world.
absolutely. Like I don't want to brag about myself because I don't think like that's I don't think that makes me more important than anybody else. But I think I had a very deep influence in very smart people within my realm. And these people went out to do very nice things in their field, you know? And that for me, that's the beauty of it, you know, like or the way you treat your friends, man, like the way you treat the people that are around you, you know, like you start to become like I feel that true philosophy I became a less resentful person. You know what I mean? Like this thing changed me deeply. You know, like changed me deeply, and I think that like now because the same the same challenges, ethical, intellectual challenges that I was like offering other people, I was actually offering to myself. You know, so I had to really, really, really rethink my whole life. You know, and I'm very different, a very different person from the person that began this philosophical journey.
Uh, no, yeah, it's wonderful. Which means a nice segue for the next question. What would you say can be one or some of the expected significant impacts of Hegel's philosophy on any curious person willing to take the time and put in the effort? Obviously, most people like the whole like the emotional impact and the deeper impacts on personality. That takes a long time, but like, what is one of the most immediate impacts that a person might see if they're sincere about studying this and they're open minded?
Clarity of mind, um, and a better knowledge of thought. And to have a better knowledge of thought is actually to have a better knowledge of, in principle, everything, because everything is to you through the medium of thought. So, for example, I love literature, right? And after studying philosophy proper, I won't say Hegel, I would say philosophy proper. I started to really understand better what was in front of me in a book, you know, like the structure of a book, the subjacent unity of things that presented to me, that were presented to me, you know. So, and this is what I call clarity of thought, you know, a very you start to have a very clear insight into concepts, and we are surrounded by concepts. We actually are constantly in the element of concepts, you know. For example, when you start to think about causality, for example, you start to see how causality is constantly being used in your daily lives. And I think this clarity of thought actually makes you more compassionate towards people, um, makes you more, in a way, creative, because you really start to have ideas instead of being halved, if I can say that in English, by them,
Mm.
you know. It gives you autonomy and freedom in your thought, because you're, in a sense, you are your thought, right? But when you don't have clarity, when you don't thematize thinking itself, you are like unfree, you know, you're being used in a sense. So I think like the most um, immediate significant impact that a person can wait is clarity of thought.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I also tell people the same thing. This thinking, because it reveals to you the actual pure form of thinking, also reveals to you when people don't think. And what you find out, it's at first, perhaps for most people, it's terrifying because they come from a background in which,
But most
the
people don't think.
scientist.
That's
Yeah,
true,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Not only is it that most people, the average Joe, doesn't think. No, most people that you believe think don't think. Scientists,
Yeah,
PhDs, doctors. A lot of these people will just say things with a straight face that are, with on any surface analysis, nonsensical. And yet we
yeah,
take it for granted that they know what they're talking about because
yeah,
they got a degree, and because a lot
yeah.
of people say it.
Exactly. That's a very scary part. You start noticing that people like they confuse two different things. They confuse associating and thinking. Associating is having like these ideas, they pop, these representations, they pop up in your head and they have similar determinations. So you externally connect them and then you call that a theory, you know? And most people go by that their entire life. They never actually have like a proper thought, like a proper immanent, continuous train of thinking. Like you really notice that many people they're simply reproducing past representations, and that pass as thought. That's very scary, and that leads us to another advantage. You are not embarrassed by authority anymore. One thing that Hegel's do to you is like, I don't fucking care if you are a PhD dude. Like, I don't care. Like, I really know what I'm talking about, and I want to simply like stand by and see you talking shit without being like I will dispute your authority, not on the basis of my authority, but on the basis of thought authority. You know, but that's
Mm-hmm.
true, Antonio. Like you start noticing that most people go throughout their whole life simply reproducing certain brilliant representations.
Yep. Next question. Has Hegel's philosophy inspired, even if only partially, any projects or future goals? Like, in your art, has it inspired any of your art, music, lyrics, poems?
Well, after I delved into philosophy, my creative process became a bit more systematic. Um, I've always been a very intuitive person, you know, and I got by with that because I think I'm pretty fast. I can make very fast associations. Like sometimes I lack depth, but I'm pretty fast. And what philosophy helped me to stop and really think things through in terms of creative solutions for my artistical work. You know, like usually, like I think one of the things that you can take out of Hegel is that the important is over there in front of you. Just shut the fuck up and look at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, shut the fuck up, stop trying to come up with something, and look at the thing that you have in front of you, you know? And sincerely shut the fuck up and look at it. Like, one of the things that he really helps me is like, for example, I will give like a very practical example. Like, when you sing a song, okay, you are interpreting a song, right? And then there is the interpreted and the interpretation. I see a lot of singers doing the same mistake. They are taking, interpreting, and they are imposing their interpreting over the interpreted. You know what I mean?
Oh
Am I being clear?
yes. No, yeah, yeah.
It's
I know
like
exactly what you mean.
it's like they, for example, and most of the time, this interpreting is used just to show how virtuose they are, on how much they know how to sing, or how beautiful are their high notes, or how beautiful are is their resonant voice, you know. But you'd notice that the connection between their interpreting and what is being interpreted is completely external,
Yes. Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Externality is it's a central problem in Hegelian philosophy. This act of which is very, very, very violent, right? You have something and you have another something, and you like try to smash them together to see if they unite, right? That's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
basics of external thinking and external perceiving. Like you mechanically try to make them work together, and they don't. And for example, I will give a very funny example. There is a song called "Não Deixe o Samba Morrer," you know, and it's a classic, and it tells the story of a man, a very old man, and he cannot. He was one of the leaders of Carnival in Brazil, right? And he was too old to participate in the party, you know. So he was like in a very nostalgic way. He's saying, "Well, let the new generation have my ring." You know, like the ring is like a symbol of continuity and heritage and tradition. You know what I mean? Because I'm old, my back's hurt, my legs cannot follow the party anymore. You know. And I remember I
Yeah.
went to a jam session here in Coimbra, and there was a guy singing this song like "No, there's just doing a lot of melismas and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that. And I was thinking, man, dude, have you ever like really looked at the lyric of it, like the mood of it? You're talking about an old dude who's like sad but happy at the same time because he cannot participate. But on the other side, he knows that that will continue and surpass his death. You know, and you are like, whoa, so well done. You are trying to show off your voice and your chops as an R&B singer, and you don't give a fuck about what is being interpreted. So that's it. This mania of putting interpreting over the interpreted, or in other words, in a very Hegelian way, of not respecting the content, only respecting the form. You know,
Yeah.
and trying to put mechanically forms over matters over contents, you know. So when I sing nowadays, I really meditate in what I am singing, and I try to everything I can to not put myself in front of what I'm interpreting. I am in service of the content, not the contrary, you know. The song has everything necessary to be well interpreted if I let it be in me and through me. So that's um that's a way in which Hegel's philosophy inspire me in everything I do artistically and in poetry. You know, I know I always fail because there is always a level of externality. Like poetry, art in general, is made to fail beautifully. You know, but I acquired a whole lot of the respect for the content. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Let's move on to the next one. What do you say to those that worry that Hegelianism is the ultimate closed, dogmatic, and uncreative box?
Well, I want these people to tell me what is wrong with being closed, dogmatic, uncreated, and uncreative. Like, like this is a very good way of putting it. Like, let's say, okay, when you say that something is dogmatic, you are actually like implying that there shouldn't be dogmatics. So why? Like, what is the source of this brilliant idea that people shouldn't be dogmatic, that people shouldn't be closed or uncreative? You know what I mean? Like, that's
Mm.
that goes for show that Hegel's philosophy really makes you aware of these little moves, these little axiological moves that 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 pass without being questioned. And I would ask this person first how they know what is the source of the concept of ultimate, of closed, of dogmatic and uncreated, and why we shouldn't be that, and how that person would justify that in front of me, because I think that the only way that they would have to actually using reason, not simply appealing to to common intuitions, to convince me from the contrary, convince me that dogmatic is not good and creative is not good and close is not good, is actually to become a Hegelian philosopher.
Yeah, pure reflexive logic. All right, next question. Could Hegel be wrong? Did Hegel get anything wrong as you understand it? Or is there something incomplete?
I will let that to people like you, Antonio, because even though I am really into Hegelian philosophy, like there are a lot of debates that I've seen you and other guys doing that I'm not in there yet. You know what I mean?
No,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
like for example, your idea of alternate modernities, and a lot of problems that are raised by Hegelian philosophy concerning gender and concerning, for example, the interpretation of Europe in modernity. Those are all things that cause me a bit of conflict, but I don't have the repertoire to actually solve or dwell into those questions. But I think there is a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work to do, especially in the fields of philosophy of nature. I think that the concept of state in Hegel is problematic. I think Souza Rodrigues, you know him, right? Is doing a very
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Yeah, the one on
I think
Facebook,
he's doing.
the guy who's also into like the medievals.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
He's doing a very good work trying to say that the state is estrangement. They state like the last part of the system would be the abolishment of the state, because the state itself is external to humankind. I don't understand his argument, okay? um,
Mm-hmm.
but in this sense, I don't know. What I do know is that the principles, I would say, because they are not actually principles, but let's simplify here. The principles of Hegelian philosophy are like they are. I am sure of them. I don't think they will ever be like they cannot be surpassed. Like
Mm-hmm.
saying that they can be surpassed is the same as saying that there can be a future philosophy which justify rationally slavery. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah.
uh, they cannot be surpassed. But there are problems in real philosophy, especially in real philosophy. I'm not talking about logic, that I don't understand very well, but I do think that there are many problems over there, especially concerning the state, concerning race, concerning gender, the role of Europe within history, and the like. But as it goes for the principles and the science of logic, of course, there is a lot of things that could be rewritten and better clarified in the science of logic. But I think that that book is final in a lot in the most important sense of the word.
Yeah, it's the most solid work. I also feel the same way. All right, final question. What are your suggestions for making the study of Hegel's philosophy easier? What primary or secondary literature do you have, like methods of note taking, meditating on ideas? What do you suggest?
um Submerge yourself in philosophy. in Hegel's philosophy. That's the first thing. Like philosophy, you don't learn philosophy in your time, you know? You don't learn like you sit and you press a button and you learn. I would say that learning philosophy is very similar to learn a language. You really must be prepared to put put the time into it, you know, and be patient. That's the first thing. And be consistent. It's about daily practice, daily reading. Every day you read, even though sometimes you won't understand shit, you go through it. You know, you don't
Mm-hmm.
learn like the ideas have their own time. They develop within your mind in their own time. You know, like no one for as brilliant as the person is can sit and learn speculative philosophy like that. You know, like the time you put into it will be the time that you take to learn it. You know, if you are a very obsessed person who really wants to get into it and you put like 4 hours daily into it, of course you will learn quicker. But um, that doesn't mean that you will actually really get into it. What I mean is that like these ideas, they will only take you they take you by surprise, you know. It's not like learning is not a technical thing like you sit in, okay, I learn. No, these things develop within you and they have their own times. That's the first thing I'll say. The second thing I'll say, uh get the fuck off, like do not read. If you really want to understand Hegel by himself, of course read Hegel. But if you need secondary literature, go for Wingfield, go for Stephen Howgate, go for the William Maker. You know, don't go for Kojev. Like I really can't believe that someone really can take Kojev, for example, seriously, concerning at least concerning like his commentaries on Hegel, because he is not commenting on Hegel. He is taking a snippet of Hegel, taking that out of the context of the whole system, and developing his own ideas, brilliant ideas about it. Okay, I don't say that that's not valuable, but these guys like Hippolyte, Koheve, like the French reception is not very good. You know, like I would suggest beginning by William Maker or Stephen Holgate or Wingfield. I would really would recommend to read your blog, of course. You know, and another thing that I would say that at first try to get into the part of the system that is most immediately related to your existential and personal concerns, you know. But I really suggest that people begin by the logic, especially by the two introductions, especially by the idea of the difference between form and content, and a formal logic, and the truth of the content, and the problem of how to begin. I think everybody can understand that part. Like that's very obvious to anybody who takes time to actually read it. So I really would recommend to have to come to grips with the two first introductions of the science of logic. That's how I would suggest people to begin, and that's it. Do it daily for a while. I'll also take breaks out of it. For example, I'm in a break right now, but I don't think I will ever stop studying philosophy and Hegel's philosophy, especially. You know, I will not never stop studying philosophy because, well, it's like, oh, I'm going to stop to speak English. You know, that doesn't make any sense. Like once you are into it, believe me, you will miss it when you stop it. Like I have like a lot of artistical activities going on in my life right now, and I've been pretty distant from philosophy for a while now, and I really miss it. And I really feel that I'm getting a bit dumber and dumber each day that I don't actually open like a page of Hegel or a page of Fichte, a page of people who actually think. Um, yeah, that's the way that I would suggest people to at first approach Hegel's philosophy.
Yeah, yeah. The analogy to learning a language is a really good one. Thank you for bringing that up. I've never thought about it that way, but that is exactly how it is. One day you wake up, if you're studying German, after a few years, you wake up and you think in German and it surprises you. Or you think of this other language that you're learning and it surprises you. And one day, like after you've been studying Hegel, like his way of thinking for a while, one day you just think. You don't think about the categories anymore. You think in the categories and you do it naturally. Uh, and then like
Yeah,
thinking is the easiest thing in the world.
exactly. And learning language it's like learning language also in the sense that like you should do it every day. It's like a better saying. For example, now I have a like an intermediary uh, going to the advanced understanding of written German. You know, I don't speak very well German because I never trained it, but I can understand uh, pretty much. Like I can understand a documentary when it has subtitles, right? How did I achieve that? Well, one day I woke up and I said, "Well, I will use German every day in my life now. From now on, I'm going to use German every day of my life," and that's what I do. And I every day I wake up and I look at something. I watch a video. I do something in German, and I think that's true to Hegelian philosophy too. Don't go about Hegel like, okay, I learned this and then I done. No. If you really want to get into it, and it's a very, very, very good thing you do to your life, you should think something like, well, this will be part of me for the rest of my life, you know, with breaks here and there, but will be part of my daily living for the rest of my life. And if you do that, there is no way you cannot learn.
Yeah, very much. Well, all right. Pedro Safara, thank you. This was a wonderful interview. I think it's going to be one of the best.
Thank you very much, Antonio. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to speak to you, my friend.
All right. We'll see you next time.